Welcome to Veteran State of Mind. I'm Geraint Jones and I've got a great episode for you today with one of our brothers from across the pond. Before we get into it, I want to shout out the Royal British Legion for their help in making this podcast possible. Not only that, but given the whole Armed Forces compensation scheme fiasco, I reached out to our friends in the British Legion and they're going to put us together with some AFCS specialists. So we're going to record with them. Stand by on social media as well because I will be asking for your questions ahead of that. As you know from my little rants and stuff recently, I think the Armed Forces compensation scheme is disgusting, especially in regards to PTSD. They make it incredibly hard to claim. And I've had my feelings on that backed up by so many of you guys that have got in touch to say that you have been fucked over by the system. So don't worry, guys. We're going to get specialists on. We're going to get squared away. I do think that the Armed Forces compensation scheme has been set up deliberately to keep veterans away from money that they're rightfully owed. And we're not having that here at Veteran State of Mind. So we'll get the experts in, get you what you are entitled to, no more and no less. All right, today's guest. He is a US Army veteran. He served out in Iraq during the surge. He went on to contract all over the world, worked as an undercover cop, and is now part of the Fieldcraft survival team out in Arizona. Absolute legend of a bloke. Please give a very warm welcome to Mr. Raul Martinez. What's up, mate? How are you doing?
Very well. How are you?
I'm good, bro. Well, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on at pretty short notice, really.
Kind of short, but I like these things. I like it when they're short notice, man. They're more fun.
Yeah. I want to say thanks to Jeff as well for putting us in touch. Are you guys? I noticed it says you're a cavalry scout, so I'm guessing you and Jeff might have crossed paths in that life, was it?
Probably.
Yeah. How is it? How is it you guys know each other?
Just in passing, I think we just met through mutual friends, and it just made sense to communicate.
Awesome, dude. I always say on here because I think there's people always going on about like people dissing veteran this and that and that, and I just think this veteran networking and everything is just like the most powerful thing on the planet right now. It's amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of movement going on in the veteran community. Guys opening up businesses and podcasts and everything is going crazy. I mean, guys making coffee, things you would never expect, right? Because it's just stuff that just happens. And I think it's the time. It's time for that generation to do their job. It happened post-war pretty much every time there was a war. So
because I have a veteran coffee man right now. So Striker Coffee sent me a bag, so shout out those guys in Australia. They sent me coffee from from Australia. So this is a very well traveled coffee. But no, I think it's I think you guys do a great job of it, of networking, of supporting each other's businesses, and by you guys I mean Americans. I think everyone else can learn a lot from that. But let's get into your background a bit, mate. I want to. You sent me a bit of a bio about yourself, and one of the things that kind of jumped out on me was the fact that you're from Chicago, and that's a name that we see in the news. Actually, I will have to say to you as well, are you a Bears fan? Because I just watched the Packers game before I came down here, real quick.
I'm a Chicago fan, okay. So anything Chicago.
Yeah, I just watched that before I came down. That's all that we'll say about that. But yeah, Chicago is a name that obviously comes out a bit in the news, especially this year where we've obviously had a lot of kind of race issues and a lot of the Black Lives Matter news and stuff coming over to the UK. Can you tell us about what your childhood was like in Chicago?
So Chicago's an interesting place because you can go from one block to the next and it's very different, right? You can have an upper scale community and then it's divided by the train system. So just two tracks cut through. And then there's viaducts and all this, what would seem like concrete jungle division. And then on the other side, it's the poor communities. And then just on the other side, you could throw a rock over these things and now you're in rich communities. So you have to be able to adapt in Chicago. You have to be able to speak differently when you're in different places. If you have a hoodie on, you take your hoodie off and you hold it in your hand and you have a nice shirt on, like you just have to shift who you are. And I think that was my luck, is being raised in a city like that where the diversity is insane, right? You have blacks on one side, Hispanics on the other, whites on the other. Some places have a mix of everything. Even the Chinese, they have Chinatown. They have their own community that's separate. And what's beautiful about what they do is they police their own. If you do something bad in their community, they try to avoid the police and they keep everything in house. So if you mug somebody and the younger guys find out, they come and they give you a little beat down and let you know not to do that in the community. Same thing with the black communities. They police themselves. They're a little bit more less willing to help, which is interesting because I worked the ghettos as well. But growing up, so let's start with the growing up. Yeah, so seeing how everything shifted and how people are together never made me want to be a cop, right? So I didn't want to be the police. I stumbled upon being an officer later in Chicago, but it was a very predominantly Hispanic community where you still had mom sticking out her head out the window and yelling at across the street, and then the other mom yelling down the street. And then finally at the end of the block, you hear, "Hey, Raul, you have to go home. Your mom's calling you." I'm like, what? Where is she calling me from? This was pre-cell phones. And it's like, okay, so I would look up and then I would see the chain of people with their heads out the windows. And then I'd be like, okay. So yeah, then you'd come home. But in that mist of, so like walking to school, it would be Hispanic gangs, a little bit of black gangs, 2 or 3 really nice homes where people were trying to fix the community. And then it was alleyways, which were the main means of transport for young Hispanic dudes. We'd cut through the alleys, cut through gangways, just make your way as quickly as you can from one position to the next. Not that you were avoiding anything. You were just kind of like, well, if I don't run into these gang members, they won't ask me about when I'm going to join or how am I going to move some product for them, or he knows my cousin, so I should do him a favor, things like that. That's just how it was there. So you learn to navigate yourself through the little jungles there when you would cross into black community. So later from grammar school to high school, now the walk is bigger, right? So now it's 3 blocks to your grammar school. Well, now it's 1.5 miles of new terrain that you have to learn to cross. Big streets, more cars, more people intersected there. So every time you grew or shifted into a new position, it would be more land, more people, new faces, more people that wanted new favors, more alleyways to learn how to navigate and get through. But it was constant adapting to the environment, I think is what really stands out for me the most with Chicago.
So before we go into a bit more about gangs, can you tell us, I was just thinking, we got British listeners, might not be familiar with the term Hispanic. Can you just, give a bit of information about what it means to be Hispanic and all that kind of thing?
So Hispanic is more like a broad term for the Spanish community, the community that speaks the Spanish language, be it, and it's more of a North America thing, right? So it's people that come from Mexico, Ecuador, Guatemala, all those countries that are just south of the border from the United States. So it's a broad term to encompass all of those. They're not even racist because everybody's pretty much the same shit up here, but it's more like it's cultural, right? So like I said, Mexico is a big one that uses Hispanic, but I'm first generation American. So my parents migrated from Mexico to the US. So for me, that played a big role, but so that it makes sense, it's anybody who is a Spanish-speaking community that is now in the United States kind of gets labeled as Hispanic, where African Americans are the black community. The whites are just white community. And then you have the Asians, which encompasses everybody, which is Japanese, Chinese. And that's just how it is. So there's what's beautiful about the way we see things here culturally is that at one point you could say those things and it didn't matter. People didn't care. I could be like, hey, what's up, dude? Oh man. Oh, bring your black friend or bring your Asian friend, bring that Chinese kid. Let's go hang out. And it was cool. But now you got to be sensitive about things that don't even matter. It was really cool once upon a time. You could just be like, hey man, bring this guy, bring that guy. And it was no big deal. But yeah, in a nutshell, Hispanics are anybody who speaks Spanish from other countries other than America that are now in America. And that's pretty much the Hispanic community. But maybe I'll just call them Mexicans or Chinese. It makes it easier.
Yeah, because dude, here's the thing. Like, I had a girlfriend that was half Vietnamese, half Mexican.
Yeah.
And like Vietnamese and Chinese people were just as different as somebody that's from Africa or South America. But it's like they get lumped in, and that's fine. But it's weird. What do you think about that? What's the term Latinx, and what's your kind of thoughts about that one? Because that's something, again, it's just something I don't really know about, but I've seen popping up recently.
Latinx?
Yeah, Latinx. Apparently, it's a term that was flying around during the election time. Well, I think it says a lot that you don't know it, and you are yourself Hispanic. Yeah, it's a term that the Democrats were using a lot in the elections. I think, like people like AOC and Those kind of guys.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing, right? Politics are looked at differently from other parts, right? So as you're looking in from other countries, you're kind of like, man, what's going on over there? I'm sure that's the sentiment all across the world, because it's kind of a shit show right now here in the U.S., right? Where feelings have become a thing that's valid, where it never used to be valid. It was all about logic and reason. And being upfront and honest, that was a thing before, and we stood by that, and we were known for that in the United States. And now politics are deceiving and corrupt, and it's just strange that it's such a play on people's emotions. And if you can play on people's emotions, that means that there's a degrade in education. So if you're more intelligent, you don't let your emotions take over, right? Because you can control them. You've learned that somebody's attacking your soft side. And I call it the emotions a soft side. No attack there, but it's soft if you can't control your emotions. And so we're playing on the less educated, and it becomes a thing where it looks like the whole country's like that. And the whole country isn't like that, right? So it's just strange times. I don't even know what Latinx was. And I know that was the point of the question, but yeah, go ahead.
Did you ever read that book Relentless by Tim Grover?
Not yet.
I think you'd like that, dude. You put that on the list because that's something he talks about is the emotions are weakness, like emotions are weakness, really. And he goes on to explain, he goes on to explain why. And he does, not saying that you shouldn't have emotions, but that you should understand that the more you're controlled by your emotions, the further you'll be held back a lot of the times from, like, in his case, he was the trainer to Kobe. He was the trainer to Michael Jordan. He was the trainer to, I forget his name now, D Wade. And but he's like, look, you can have emotions in your life, that's fine, but then you're never going to become a Michael Jordan or a Kobe or a D Wade and stuff. And that's a really interesting book that I recommend anyone listening go and read. It's really good. Audiobook's great too. So one of the things, obviously, you mentioned like growing up in Chicago, having to navigate around the city and things. Were you like fearful as a kid, or did you know there was danger? Like, what was your perception of danger growing up?
Man, to be honest, thinking about it now, it wasn't even risky or dangerous or bad. It was just everyday life. It was like, all right, man, let's get through this. I'd get beat up a lot, but that was just part of growing up, because when I wasn't getting beat up, I was watching other dudes get beat up, and then I was watching my friends beat up other dudes. So it was normal to either be getting your butt kicked or ass beat. I don't know how PG we want to be, but
you can. No, it's rated R on this one, mate. You can go for it.
Awesome. So you're fighting, and you're seeing guns, and you're seeing everything being exchanged, drugs, guys getting high, and guys getting bottles broken across their face. It was just normal. You're like, oh man, that sucks, and then you'd continue on with your day. So there was no sense of fear or danger. It was more like, all right, how can I get beat up less today? And it was either run faster, fight back, hang out with the right people, not go to certain places. So the avoidance aspect of everything. But now trying to think of how I felt as a kid growing up, I don't think there was a sense of danger or fear. It was just another day in the in the city.
Were you ever tempted to join a gang?
Absolutely. I mean, you're tempted because of what looks like, even in the military, like this brotherhood, this unity. But again, if you separate the emotion and you look past what they're offering, there's a lot of take, right? Everything's give and take. There's a lot more take. Freedom's a big one to lose. Being caged like an animal, I don't think I could do well with that. So there were certain things that I wasn't willing to risk. Yes, I'd rather be in jail than dead, but I didn't get forced into anything. Any decisions that I made as far as gangs go, I made them based on wanting to do it. But there was never a desire. There was never a push. Sometimes it was just a smart idea to be associated with a certain group versus another.
When we talk about gangs, what kind of like levels are there? Different levels of gangs in the area that you have, like the gangs of like younger kids, or then gangs that are actually moving drugs around? Like, what is there different kind of tiers to them?
There are actually. So there's like syndicates, there's mafias, there's local street level gangs, and they all play for power in different ways, right? So the muscle is usually the bottom tier guys, the guys on the street intimidating and maybe selling a couple of bags here or there. And it could be anything. In our area, it was cocaine and marijuana that were the big ones, right? That's the Hispanic fun time, I guess, where the black communities, it's more cocaine it's more crack cocaine and heroin. That's more in the black communities. The white communities are predominantly cocaine and marijuana as well. They still want to function and do things and be part of the community, but still be a little tweaked up, right? So
Talk about opening restaurants together.
Yeah, exactly. And hanging out in the back and just opening up a bag. But yeah, so the lower tier guys, the street level gangs, that's more intimidation, making a couple bucks here and there and fighting. And it's like territories, like don't come in my 3x3 block radius. Petty stuff, right? But that's who you encounter the most. That's who you end up in crossing paths with the most, is those guys. Above them, you have like the bosses, the guys moving bigger weight that then distribute it to the smaller guys. Those guys are a little more low key. You maybe see them driving around. You don't see them hanging out on the street as much. They're making connections. They're moving things around. They're less at that level. You're less interested in races. Like you don't even care as long as there's money being exchanged. So the Hispanic guys are selling drugs to the black guys, are selling to the white guys, to the Asian guys. It didn't matter as long as it was money being moved around. So there's connections made above the street level where it looks like all gangs are fighting at a race level or they're fighting over territory. Yeah, that's the perception because there needs to be this sense of intimidation, right? And muscle. And then above them, it's about money. And then above them, it's about overall control of the city. Like who gets the stuff into the city? So now you have major movers or players, right? Mafias or syndicates, whatever you want to call them. Those are the guys making the international connections, the international movements of drugs, guns, and unfortunately, human trafficking. There's a lot of that too. So there are levels, there are tiers, there are people that play their roles well within those tiers. And it's all about knowing who to talk to, who not to talk to, and then who to completely avoid.
Were you aware of then who was who? As a kid, you knew the guys that were at different levels in these organizations.
Yeah, you knew up until a certain point. But above them, you didn't know. Like the international guys, you didn't really know them. Those guys, they were like family men in good suits. They owned a tire shop or something that looked normal. And then they had those, we call them plugs, the connection, the guy who fills the void. So you don't really know them. There was rumors they would circulate like, oh yeah, don't fuck with that guy because he's connected and things like that. But at the street level, you knew the street guys and the guys moving somewhat better weight as far as drugs go and guns. At those two tiers, those two levels, you're not really dealing a lot with human trafficking. That's more that top tier where you're moving. It's funny, right? Because America's like, oh, reparation for slavery. There's still fucking slavery. People just don't know and they don't talk about it because it's a shitty subject to talk about. It's just no longer race-based. It's based on people's desires and their shitty habits, like the whole child sex trafficking ring and the younger kids being trafficked. Like all that stuff is stuff nobody wants to talk about because it's America's dirty little secret. And I mean, it's a dirty secret for the whole world. Everybody has human trafficking. But yeah, at our level, you knew the street guys, the muscle, and then you knew maybe who moved around some weight and maybe their friends, but you didn't really get to know who the big players were.
And moving around the weight, that's moving drugs, like at a big level.
Yeah, it's moving around like kilos. It's delivering kilos to different neighborhoods, and then they're distributing to the small street level guys.
So what was your attitude towards police growing up?
It was interesting. We saw them, and then we didn't want to be seen by them. So as soon as we saw them, we'd make a move to go somewhere else. I've done some shitty stuff towards police. Like we've distracted them by throwing bricks and other stuff at their cars to get them to not turn a corner so they would focus on us so that our buddies on the other side could do their thing. So we were shitty. I ran from the police more times than I can remember. So definitely I've even had police pull guns at me as a kid. Really? and point them at me. And I'm not mad at them. I understand that it's a job and nobody wants to get hurt doing that job. But it didn't settle in or it didn't make sense until I became a cop, like why cops were so aggressive in certain areas. And once it made sense, I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But you can still treat people normally and not you can still get the effect of authority without being an asshole, basically. And a lot of the guys were like that. So I had good examples of guys that are like, hey man, I'm not here for you. I just need you to not be dumb and, and let me get through this alleyway. And then you start to meet good people because everything is a game of people, right? And personalities. So you just have to figure out what personalities are doing what. And then once you know that, you can navigate people a lot easier. but you have to care just a little bit so that when you do meet somebody, so this guy can be an ally potentially. So a lot of the guys that could have arrested me didn't arrest me and ruin my future. They did me favors by just letting me go with a pat on the back and being like, hey man, don't do that again. So definitely my clash with police was everything from run from them, try to get away, fight for not getting caught, to shaking hands and saying, hey, good luck in the future. Don't be dumb. Make better decisions, to being put in cars, to being actually arrested and taken to jail. So everything from high fives to a little bit of jail time.
So what was jail time like?
That sucked, man. Being caged up was bad. I wasn't in long. It was 2 weeks, I think, was my little stint while we figured things out, made bail, and then I bonded out. It was like a $10,000 adventure. We ended up losing $10,000 US, and I think it went on for like a year and a half. Yeah, it was a long mess of being in court and dealing with the court system. And that kind of just made me not want to do that again. Like, man, what a waste of time. I have to put on a $12 suit from the thrift store to go in front of a judge who, who doesn't really care. He's just looking at stats and numbers. And that's the problem, again, that I learned through that process, was how the court system now is about numbers and just plea deals. And plea deals it's a sensitive topic. And we fought my case up until the end. Plea deals are weird. And this is where America kind of gets a weird rep with prison reform and criminal reform and all this stuff about the legal system. Is they give you a deal, right? So let's say you get stopped and you have one bag of whatever. You have marijuana in your pocket. And they're like, hey, either you go to jail for 5 years because of that bag, or you confess to everything, say that you had it, and you cut a deal. We don't even go to court for 1 year and 1 year probation. And you're like, oh man, that sounds way better than potentially getting 5 years. So you're like, I'll take your deal. So now everybody's cutting deals when you shouldn't be cutting deals.
They might not even have enough to send you away for anything.
Exactly. But they're coerced into this idea that, we need to make a deal because we're coming from a point of authority, where you shouldn't make deals, especially when you're right. There's a lot of guys that make deals when there isn't enough evidence to even put them away. But it's that system where, like, it's called the plea bargains now. Everything. Think of those two words put together: plea and bargain. In a court system, it shouldn't be used, right? It doesn't make sense. It's illogical. But that's how America's become. They're just like, hey, we'll give you this, this, and this if you just admit to this, and we don't even have to go to court and waste 1 day in court. So that's how, and I get where it came from, right? Imagine having a stack of papers, and each one of those papers needs to go through and spend 3 to 5 days reading the information, processing it, and then going to court, and that's another 7 days. So you're looking at 2 weeks minimum for a petty case per case, and now you have a stack of 500 of those. So the best way to navigate that or get rid of that is to, hey, cut this guy a deal. We won't even spend 1 day in court. That saves us 2 weeks. So they start issuing those plea bargains to everybody with these petty cases, and guys take it. And it's become this weird plea system. And I got to see that and experience that from my endeavors with the court system. And I was like, man, I really don't want to be doing this again.
Yeah, I mean, guilty until proven innocence has become the way with a lot of things now, hasn't it? And that's one example of that. And like you said, it's this idea that it's a lot of the time is scary, and people don't know their rights, and people are scared, and you go in and, like, a lot of people are afraid of public speaking, let alone being in a room with a judge looking down at you and a room full of people and armed people in there. I mean, it's terrifying. Did you ever read that book, The Corner? I think it was the basis of the TV show The Wire. I read that again, it's a great book. I recommend it for anyone. And it was basically all these Baltimore, the murder, what they call murder cops. They were like the murder squad. And the guy was basically saying to this journalist, look, if people just didn't say anything to us, we would not convict anyone. He's like, but people just incriminate themselves all the time. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to request a lawyer. Or, well, it's not even a request, is it? Because it has to be honored.
Right.
And then he said, if people just do that, they would get away with everything. He said, but because what they would do is they'd say something to them, which they'd be like, oh, well, we got your friend in the other room, and they said that you did it. And then they go, I want to cut a deal. And that's how they get them. It's dirty tricks. Now, some people might say that ends justify the means, but how many people are getting caught up in the middle of that who just didn't do anything, who I've heard of people who they've got to get back out. They've got to get back out or they're going to lose their job. So it might be a plea deal for a really minor thing, but if they don't cop to it, then they're going to lose their job. So they're like, oh, well, I'll take this. And then they don't think about what that's going to do to the rest of their life. Now they have this, this record. But do you feel like in a way you kind of got blessed by having that experience as a kid?
Absolutely. I mean, I have one of my best friends, and I don't talk about it much, but he's in jail for the rest of his life. I mean, he took somebody's life, and it's really frowned upon, obviously, everywhere. But it happened during gang stuff, and now he's never going to see the streets that we grew up on ever again. And he's a good guy. I mean, we grew up, and he and I were super close. I mean, we haven't talked in a few years now, but that's a shitty endeavor that he has to now endure for the rest of his life. But it's life choices. And those little things are the things where I'm like, man, all the little things that happened to me that I thought were bad at one point were actually blessings in disguise. And they were lessons that I actually listened to. And that's why I say it's super important to pay attention to your environment and to the people around you, because it's constant. It's this exchange of energy and understanding. And the more you can pick up on that, the easier life becomes, because you're like, you know what, that feels bad. Let's not do it. Or this trip doesn't feel right. Let's not go with it. Things like that. Just like I've been in other countries where I'm like, you know what, dude, I don't think today's a good day to go to that area. And then we won't go. And then there was just rival gangs shooting at each other. Not that I'm like psychic or anything. I think I just get lucky, or I'm lazy that day and I just don't want to go. But just something doesn't feel right. I try not to do it, to be honest. And it served me well. A lot of times it's nothing. I think 95% of the time it's nothing, but it's that intuition that we tend to ignore because we don't see ourselves as that strong anymore. You know what I mean?
I agree with that, of what you're saying though, dude. Like, I definitely think you can become, when you can tune. I think a lot of the times we override our gut instinct rather than listen to it. And like, for anyone young listening, it's like, look, if you want to kill people and be in a gang, then join the army, because it's the biggest gang on the planet, and you can go out and shoot people. And on a philosophical level, I do find it incredible that like we've got like a super prison not far from here. There's guys in there who are in jail for doing the same thing as I wrote a book about and got a book deal for. And now I have a podcast based off what I did. It's a weird one on a philosophical level. Taking life is taking a life, but it isn't taking a life. Like, it's very different, because like you were saying there, I don't think there's many people on the planet who would argue if you break into an old lady's house and murder her to steal what's in her safe. I don't think there's many people who would say like, oh, don't put him away and and throw away the key. But when you're talking, well, he was 18 and he was in a gang, and he was 18 and he was in a gang, and he shot one of his friends, then I'm like, does that deserve to take away the rest of his life? I don't think it does, personally. I mean, like, what's your kind of thoughts on that? Like on these guys, these young guys, often coerced into making a mistake and then being punished for that for the rest of their life. Like, how is that something that or how do you see that?
I think, again, that gets mixed in with not having time to go through the facts, right? Because the whole letter of the law thing, everything's black and white. It needs to be like this, this, and this, and it needs to meet this criteria to be defined as this. And they leave out all of those factors, right? They leave out now what's such a big influence in the media is the emotion around the problem, right? They don't just focus on the problem, or the court systems focus solely on the problem, not all the stuff around the problem. That's what the media does. They fill in the blanks with the emotion. So emotionally driven and then fact driven. If you take out all the emotion and the fact that they were both 18 and the fact that they were both in the equal gangs and they wanted to fight each other and then one lost, if you throw in the whole backstory, it's very different. Then you're like, cool, let them duke it out and see what happens, right? But if you look at it without that and it's just one guy killed another guy, that's illegal, put him in prison. Right. So it just removes all of it. But it's funny because we choose to remove things based on our own interpretation of things. Right. Because if we presented that story, both of those stories in a court case, they wouldn't be like, yeah, they grew up the same and, they were rivals. And once upon a time, this guy did this and this guy did that. And it led to this big ordeal. And now somebody's dead. Right. It doesn't play out that way. It's more like this shitbag went and shot this shitbag, and now this shitbag got caught, and that's boom, 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 right? It's very matter of fact. But when you're painting the story of the guy who broke into 85-year-old grandma's house, knowing she was home. So now I'm painting this other picture, right? I knew she was home. So this is home invasion now. It's not just a burglary. It's home invasion. I know she's home. I know that she's asleep. I'm creeping through the house. She wakes up. I have to kill her so she's not in the way of me getting other stuff, right? Her property or whatever I want to get. So now I'm painting this picture of this predator coming through and like, oh man, really navigating the house and killing people and then getting what he wants and then getting away. And then now that person is like a psychopath versus the act itself, right? You killed somebody, but it's how you kill somebody and the reasons why I think that sometimes get missed. And again, it's hard to justify because America is not going to ever be like, oh man, that's a really cool story. These two guys duked it out and they agreed to it. It's just it's not how it's going to play out, but it'd be cool if it did. Because in America, if you kill somebody, even if you hurt somebody, you can get in trouble for it, right? And it's like you said, the biggest gangs. So the police are a big gang. I fought a bunch of dudes. We've done a lot of shit. I've been shot at as a cop. Like people are weird. I've pulled guys off ledges that were about to jump. I've seen guys jump off ledges, and all this like death and mayhem is okay. You get to just go home. No big deal, right? Military as well, right? You're deployed. You're overseas. You're seeing dudes get blown up. I'm pulling charred bodies out of Humvees and fucking fighting off rooftops and all this shit. And it's just like, everything's okay. Like there's a slew of bad guy bodies and nobody gives a shit. We get to go home, eat, shower, and do it all over again. But you do stuff like that at home, and it's a little different, like you said, right? Some of us can work that to our favor, and some of the other guys can't. But I think a lot of it is just circumstance. It's how the world perceives the activities. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are in a unique age. We've never been even America, where there is the highest rates of violence compared to history. It's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a guy from the 1st Battalion of my regiment who he was in Afghanistan in Helmand in 2010. He came back on R&R. 48 hours later, 48 hours of being on the front line, he's in a club. A guy keeps pestering his girlfriend. He sees a threat, hits this guy. Doesn't kill him or anything. Literally just hits him. He gets arrested. He gets done for assault. He gets thrown out the army. He goes to prison. 48 hours before he threw that punch, he was I'm not saying he was killing people, but he was out there with a round in the chamber to kill people.
Yeah.
And then he threw a punch. So like our societies haven't caught up with the fact that we're sending guys, and I'm kind of going down a tangent here about soldiers and their relation to violence. But the world is still a violent place, and we send British and American people off to fight in it. But then we are so desensitized in the country in one sense. TV has never been as gory as it's been. Sometimes I see a movie, dude, and I'm like, that's too much. I don't want to watch. I don't want to see that. But, there's literally movies are torture porn, and you can go on the internet and watch people get their brains blown out or run over by a fucking bulldozer and heads chopped off with chainsaws. Whatever you want to go and see, you can find it. But then at the same time, you can throw a punch now and your life can be ruined over a punch. But then you can go home that night and sit down and watch TV and watch people punch each other and they get cheered. We're in a very weird place where we don't know where to place violence. And I think it's like, I'm kind of just going on a rant here because this stuff is I just can't get my head around it. But I don't think our society knows how to place or where to place violence.
It's how you take it, right? Is it a personal attack on people who can make decisions, right? So whoever happened to arrest that guy, to be arrested, the copper he had to have made the decision that was arrest worthy, right? So that's like step one in this shitty chain of legal systems, right? Because you can have another copper show up and be like, oh, you shouldn't have been hitting on his girl, buddy. You're lucky it was just one punch. That would have been me. I'd be like, you guys want to duke it out? You guys can finish this if you want. If not, you're an idiot and he punched you for being an idiot. And then that's the end of the story, right? But then you have this guy who's got different ideals, different things. Maybe he's a high, mighty guy. And this is where personalities are so intricate. And it's interesting who gets put into what positions because we call them the hall monitors, right? The guy who he sees you in the hallway and he's like, you're in trouble. And no matter what, you're in trouble. And then you got the more chill guy. He's now in the hallway watching the hallway. And he looks and he sees you and he just waves at you. I'm like, whatever, I don't care. Right? So it's very personality driven. And I think that's what it is, right? Is whoever's dealing with that case at that particular moment is going to have a huge influence on the outcome of that. And that's what happens here in America. A lot of guys get away with a lot of things because the coppers are kind of like, whatever. And then like I got in trouble with my police department in Arizona because I was stopping people for speeding and just introducing myself.
I like you, dude. You can pull me over anytime.
But it was important because I wanted to build a relationship with the community, right? 50,000 people, chances are I'm going to see you again. It's not a big community here. And everybody who's traveling, you'll end up encountering them again, right? And now, so let's say you're speeding, right? And I stop you. And I know this is the area that I work, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to drive through here again. You drive through again and you're speeding the second time that I stop you. Then I'm like, hey, come on. And then you're like, okay, I understand. So if I issue you a ticket now, we both have this understanding that the first time we met was cordial and friendly. The second time, you should have learned the lesson, right? You shouldn't have done it. And even if they were like, you know what, I was late, the babysitter, and then this and that. And if it's a legit story, chances are I'll give you a second shot. Right? It wasn't a big deal for me. But my department didn't like that. They were like, more tickets. But to me, it was all about personalities and getting to know people. I had a case where a father was having trouble with his 15-year-old son, and he calls and he's like, I want him arrested so he knows what it's like to be punished, blah, 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 blah. I was like, if I arrest your son, he's going to have a court case attached to his name. And he's probably going to have a hard time joining the military because that was part of the conversation. He's like, I wish he was old enough to join the military and just leave. Yada, yada, right? Conversation goes on. And I'm like, you're going to ruin his chances of good schools. You're going to ruin his chances of the military and maybe law enforcement or anything else that the kid wants to do by putting a case on this guy. And that's what we call it in America. You put a case on somebody. You give them a court number or a case number, and they become part of the system. So now every time they look you up anywhere, that's going to pop up. Right. So I explained that to the dad, and then he's like, oh, man, I never thought of it like that. I was like, yeah, you're about the father who's supposed to protect and cultivate this child. We're about to ruin his life because you couldn't deal with him. And I think that's a lot of what it is. It's frustration. It's lack of commitment on a lot of people's ends. They just want to just be like, you know what, that's bad. Boom, throw the book at him, be done with it. But that's what it is, man. It's hit or miss based on who's in charge that day, I think. And that's where training and education become a thing where people need to get more of it. You need to be better educated as a law enforcement officer. You need to be better educated as a soldier, learn the cultures. That was my big thing. I was shaking hands with the sheikhs. I was eating at their houses, and we were being invited to places, and everything was because we were willing to have conversations, right? I get it. At any moment, they could have flipped, and I was fine with putting a fucking gun to his face and shooting him in the face. But if he didn't want that, then we're going to sit there and we're going to eat and we're going to have a good time, right? And that was the relationship that you build with people, knowing the difference. And that's war, right? You don't, obviously in America, you don't do that. But I would whoop your ass.
I told you twice, this is your third speeding ticket.
Yeah. You just shoot the tires out because that's what American cowboys do, right? But yeah, it's super dependent on who's in charge, man. And I think that's one thing that's overlooked all the time is if the cop is like you and you're kind of like in the middle, right? Because being a cop is like this fine line of good and bad, right? At least the good cops. You're toting this line of being a good guy and a bad guy because you need to understand both the streets and the legal system that you're there to enforce, right? Back to the case of the guy getting punched, that's a good one, right? Let's say if you were the cop in that case and you showed up, how would you have handled that?
Oh, I had handled it. Take him out of the club, send them separate ways, put him in a taxi. End of.
Easy, right?
Yeah.
How simple was that decision you just made and not changing somebody's life and throwing them completely into the shithole, right? And then you have another guy who would have been more like me, like, hey, you guys want to fight it out? I'll watch. Let's see what's up. Let's see who's really a man. Because then you're attacking their ego, right? Then, because none of them want to fight anymore, it's over. At least the guy who got punched is probably like, damn, that guy hits hard. I don't want to fuck with that guy. But now you attack their ego. Like, you guys want to keep going? Let's go to the end. Somebody gets knocked out, then I'll stop this fight. I'm the referee now. And it scares people. And they're like, oh, shit, this guy's not playing.
Get your finger away from the skip button, you little shits, and lend me your ears for a couple of minutes because no sponsors equals no podcast. Combat Fuel If you have social media, then you have probably been touching yourself over how good I'm looking at the moment. I am looking juicy and swole. Combat Fuel has a lot to do with that. They have a new and even more delicious vegan protein in stock. I recommend, even if you're not a vegan, not just because it's delicious, but because it doesn't empty your room when you get the old lactosey farts that you get with whey protein and that kind of stuff. I use Combat Fuel's pre-workout whenever I lift. On legs days, I go for a big scoop of the regular pre-workout. And on upper body days, aka most days, I go for half a scoop of the regular pre-workout and 2 scoops of their pump-up product. And I get juicy gains for days. If they still have them in stock, I also recommend adding some Mountain Joe bars to your order. I smashed a couple of those today, actually. I got the Millionaires ones with the white chocolate. They're my favourite. Fuck, should have said that. Don't want to go out of stock. And I also like the chocolate brownies. They're lovely. They got a good ratio of carbs to proteins and fats. They're good for really good for taking the edge off your hunger. Keep a couple in your day sack. Gorgeous for having with a brew or a hot wet for you bootnecks out there who are probably listening to this in your 17th shower of the day, which you're having with your mates, no doubt. So if you want Combat Fuel, combatfuel.co.uk and at Combat Fuel, and there's a link for you guys in the show notes. Also want to say thank you as ever to Zulu Alpha watch straps. They've been with us for a very long time. We are very grateful. Zulu Alpha been doing big stuff in 2020, and I know some of you have been following that journey. If you want to check them out on social media, they're at Zulu Alpha Straps, and I've linked their website in the notes. They make bombers watch straps for alley blokes. I am a particular fan of the black beard design. I like black clothing, and I like black watch straps. And there's just enough colour on there for it to make it pop. I like it. Check them out. They're at Zulu Alpha Straps, ZuluAlphaStraps.com. Both of these companies are veteran-owned and operated. And they're also small businesses who have been getting fucked in 2020 by the man. But they're still going strong. Why? Because they're run by top blokes who put bags of effort in. So let's get behind them. Thank you, Combat Fuel, and thank you, Zulu Alpha Straps, for your continued support of the podcast. All right, let's get back to it.
It scares people, and they're like, oh shit, this guy's not playing. Right? So there's that way, or there's the way that the copper chose to do it and put him in jail and ruin his career, and shit got bad. So
ruined things for so many people as well, because I just see that as a net loss for society.
Yeah.
You had a guy that was willing to go to war, because some people will say you can argue that he's not going for his country, fine, whatever. But the fact was he was there on the behest of Britain, and he was working a job. He was paying taxes. He was a contributing member of society, and now all of a sudden he's a burden on society because you've got to pay for him to have it in there. It's just there's no winners. There's absolutely no winners in that situation whatsoever. One of the things that you said, though, dude, that's common about both of those situations was because it's like, I'm going to go inside your head and guess what you, and take a guess at what you were thinking. And what you were thinking, I reckon, was if I win people over, then the big things that the real problems in this town, people are going to talk to me about, and I'm going to be able to take down, not Susie, it's doing 33 and a 30, but I'm going to be able to take down someone that's abusing children, or I'm going to hear about this and people are going to trust me and they're going to be the guy that I come to and I can stop all these evil crimes from happening. There's nothing evil about driving 33 and 30, but there are evil things that happen. Same in Iraq. You're in Iraq and you're like, okay, do I want to get some? Yes. But at the end of the day, what is our mission? Our mission is to rebuild, restructure Iraq and build a thriving democracy. What is the best way of achieving that? Is it shooting someone in the face or is it talking? Well, let's try talking first. And if it doesn't work out, then we can try shooting in the face. It's the big picture. I've always been a big supporter in law enforcement. I was actually had a position to join the police myself, but I dropped out to go to Afghanistan. As you do, because I wanted to shoot people in the face. I'll be honest about it. And you know what? I've always been a big supporter of the cops. I have a lot of friends who are cops, and because of this year, because of the way that they've been arresting people. There was one in the news the other day. They've arrested a guy for taking Christmas presents around to his family during lockdown. Every time you have that, Jocko Willink, I don't know if you listen to him. Like I know a lot of people probably will do. He talks about leadership capital. And you only have so much leadership capital. And I think police are leaders in the community, and they only have so much leadership capital. And when you arrest someone for taking a present to his grandma, you lose that. And when somebody calls you and they say someone, and I'm using excuses and things from my own life here, when you call the police and you say someone's smashed my car up and they say, oh, it's just kids, they got nothing else to do, you lose leadership capital until it gets to the point where people go, well, I'm done with you now. It's at the point I'm done with you. And I think like there's this this thing of tickets is it's a short term. It's like the quarterly thinking of this is how, as a boss in these positions, I keep my job. Why is it that there's this seems to be this lack of big picture thinking, and it comes down to things like ticketing people and speed traps and that kind of thing? Why is that a thing?
So a few things, right? One, we've grown. Like, it's too big now. So now people, chances are, so like our boss, the sheriff, let's say, or his guys under him, they're never going to run into anybody again, right? Because they're hidden in offices. They're not on the road anymore. And it's just this disconnect with the community. You don't have to deal with them. You don't have to see them. You don't have to hear their problems. So population size is a big one. It's now this anonymity thing where there's so many people that you're just kind of like, man, if I'm just hard on a couple of people, it's never going to get back to me. It's too big. Nobody's going to remember.
Right.
And then they're under pressure to show the community that they're doing something. And it's funny because law enforcement wasn't like this before. Law enforcement used to be about avoidance and just being a presence so that shit didn't happen. But once upon a time, if you didn't arrest people and there was no fucking crime, you were a good cop.
Imagine that.
Yeah. I'm just standing here tough as nails. He's like, oh man, I don't want to mess with anybody in this community because they got some hardcore guys. Nobody's arrested. Nobody's hurt. Nobody's in trouble. Man, look at that. That's what law enforcement was. It was this thing so that it was a deterrent from people doing bad things. Now you're praised for having more arrests. You're praised for more tickets. You're praised for more activity, quote unquote activity. But all you're doing is hammering the same people that want to respect you, that actually do look up to you because you're doing a job they don't want to do, but somebody has to do it. And so that disconnect, I think, is forgetting what law enforcement was designed to be. And it was just designed to be somebody being present so that you didn't do something dumb, just to remind you not to do it. Right. It wasn't like I'm here and look at you. You're doing it. It's 9:00. Curfew's at 8:30. It wasn't like that. People just did the right thing before. And it was because population, I think, was smaller. So it was easier to just be in a community and you cared about your community. Now everything's so vast, people don't even know who their neighbors are. So that disconnect, I think, is a big deal. Having to show like your worth, right? That's where these tickets come from. You're on the road for 8 to 10 hours a day. What did you bring into the office? Well, shit, guess what? Nobody got hurt. Nobody got killed. There's no injuries. Nobody's in jail. That's a good day. But that's not always how it's seen in American law enforcement now. It's like they're pushing the young guys to get arrests, and the more heads, we call them heads, the more arrests you get, the more cool you are, the better you are, right? So when I was in narcotics, I think we had 180 arrests in 8 or 9 months. That's a lot. It's roughly a person a day. And then I was thinking, I was like, yeah, that's really cool. And we were praised for it. But on the flip side of that is, well, what if there was just no crime and we didn't arrest people and people just went about their day-to-day life? Like, man, that's the same outcome, right? It's the same outcome in the sense of not having to fuck with people and society's okay. Mm-hmm. But society demands certain things, and I think cops try to meet that demand. Maybe they just don't understand what the true demand would be. Like, I'd rather have safer communities and nobody's in jail, but people know how to do their shit. And if you fuck up, it's a real mess up, and then you get handled, right? It gets dealt with, like the Asian communities in Chicago. Yeah. You do something dumb, the community handles your shit. You are more afraid of the locals than you are of the police in that community. But a lot of it just has to do with that, I think. It's population size and having to show your worth, right? You want to be that cool young go-getter, go make arrests, go find drugs. But when you're out looking for things, it's very different than when you are observing for things, right? So observing, you're kind of more laid back. You're kind of like, okay, let's see what happens. Let's see where the shitbags make mistakes. You're tracking versus going out there, stopping every car, looking through every glove box until you find something. That's a little bit more of an aggressive approach. it worked at a certain time, but I think it destroyed the relationship between the community and law enforcement.
I think you've got to look at what is the end state, right? The end state should be, we want a nice community for everybody to live in. It's a safe community. So if someone's pulls someone over and they find some weed in their glove box or whatever, I don't know what it would be, but let's just say someone finds some weed in there, and then that person, then we go down this whole legal tunnel. Is that going to make the community better for anyone? It's probably going to make it worse. Like, what is going to be the result of it? Is it going to be worse? Now, if you pull a car over or you have an operation and you find out that you arrest a sex trafficking operation, that's probably going to make the community better. So there seems to have been this loss of what is going to make the community better. Because let's take the whole arrest thing. Oh, this is a good cop. He's making 100 arrests a year. So basically, if you follow the way of thinking, you're like, well, if he made 1,000 arrests a year, he's even better. What does the society look like when you can make 1,000 arrests a year? That's a Nazi Germany society when you can arrest someone for saying the wrong thing. So there's a real danger of, like, not right now, but 20, 30 years' time, if we keep going on the same, because we all know what quotas are like. They never go down. They're always going up. So where does this way of thinking lead us in 20 years' time? I don't think it leads us anywhere good, because all of a sudden it's like, I heard Gez and Raul on the call, and they said so they used some racial terms like black, which they were okay at the time, but this podcast was 5 years ago and we don't use those anymore. So now we're going to bring them in court and we're going to go out. There's always new, because you have to start we've maxed out on arresting everyone for this stuff. Now what's the next level of stuff that we can arrest them for? And you start bringing in more laws, and it's a very dangerous path, and it gets away from the core reason for policing. But also it's like you said, it alienates people from wanting to help the police, because I think the majority of people want to get behind the police. Like, has that been your experience of it?
Absolutely. They all want to help and they all want to be a part of it, but because of the disconnect, and they don't feel the same support side from the police, because nobody's shaking hands, nobody's saying hello. They're like, man, I really want to help him, but if I do, my community, and they've chosen sides with people that don't even exist. The community didn't side with them, and by community I mean like the shitbag community, right? The gangs and the violence. They didn't agree to be good to you. They just don't want you in the way. So if you're just not in the way, then you're fine. Mm-hmm. But if you're in the way, then there's a problem. And being in the way doesn't have to be with like snitching or being a good member of the community, because nobody cares that you're smoking a joint in the back of the alley. Nobody cares about that. Now, when you start robbing people, it changes, right? Even the community goes against you. And even some of the bad guys know not to do things in the community. You don't fuck with people. You don't fuck with the elderly. You don't just beat people up and rob them for no reason. You definitely don't abuse women. And that's like there's like codes within the community, right? Even the gangs, when they start to violate that, higher ups in the gangs come down and they're like, no, this needs to stop. It's the same thing, right? When there's a random person, let's say this community has no gangs, but there's a new guy in town and he's just a fucking asshole to people. The community starts to police that, and that's when they're like, hey, they'll call the police and be like, hey, this guy's kind of weird. He's doing things. So now there's this interaction, right? But it needs to be a give and take where the community cares enough and then the police care enough, and that conversation was had to work with each other, because people do want to work with each other, right? We're this giant cluster of let's talk, let's hang out, let's get to know each other. Everybody tries to be the lone wolf, and I'm a loner. I don't need people. You thrive the most when you're surrounded by people, especially good people. So people want that. They want that sense of, I'm never going to be a cop, but I helped the cop do his job. Man, that's cool, right? Like, that's why little kids look up to cops. They see them helping people, or they used to, because that was the portrayal. Now it's like cops kill everybody, and that's not the case, right? Mm. So it is. There's just a disconnect, because people do want that. People still want to help the police. If I show up to a crime scene that's actively happening, everyone's like, oh, the car took off that way and it was a blue pickup truck, or he ran in the store. They're saying things without even thinking. They want to help you, and they're not even processing the information. They're just spewing it out. They're just like, oh shit, the police are here. Oh, he ran over there. He was wearing a blue shirt. He went this way. It's just in us to want to help each other, right? Because for the most part, people are pretty good until they're not.
Yeah, dude, I think you said something there. It's an important thing to highlight as well, as a distinction. And I think in Britain, people have just got to the point where a lot of people are just like, they're just thinking cops are either out to get me or they're useless. But I don't think we're in fear for our life of police here. Like, my thing is, I just don't bother calling the police for anything anymore because they just never get anything done, or it comes back on me.
Yeah.
So and so it's like, if I don't know, I'm speaking for a lot of people listening because I talk to a lot of listeners about this. It's if you knew someone had broken into your house and stole something, or if someone had done something, you're going to take care of it yourself. And this isn't somewhere we should be looking to go as a society, is back to the days of, I'll fucking take care of this myself, because that's not a good way to go.
Right.
But that's kind of how things are going. But in America, like, it does seem to be this seems to be this pervasive idea of cops killing people, and there's a genocide, especially a genocide of black people by cops, a genocide, which is a pretty strong term. Have you seen that change during your lifetime, or has that been something that was even around before then?
So this is a really awesome topic, actually. It's a thing. I don't know why it's a thing and why they don't release the actual numbers of who's getting killed. More white people get killed by police than black people get killed. So knowing that, we know that there's an agenda behind it, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has to do with the sentiment that Americans feel towards something they've never even done, right? They feel this need for reparation because of slavery. And I'm probably going to get a lot of people that hate me for telling the truth, but check it out. The people that are trying to help the new black community, that black community, they were never slaves. They have all the equal opportunities that we have. My parents still struggle with speaking English, and they've made businesses happen. They've put me through schools. They've gotten me out of trouble. A lot of things that people who don't even speak the language shouldn't be able to do, right? But they were able to do it because of work ethic. Mm. So, like I said, they're going to dislike me, and I don't even give a shit because it's the truth, and the truth should be spoken. If you make bad decisions, you get shitty results, right? Pretty standard. So people that are getting shot, they're not the black preacher who's at church giving a sermon and a cop comes in and shoots him. That's not how it works. It's usually somebody committing a crime, somebody who's fighting back to the police. I mean, why would you, if you're in a position of authority and somebody fights back, something's wrong, right? It's either I did something wrong or you did something wrong. Something's happening where we're now in this engagement of combat. And I don't want to die if I'm a cop, and you don't want to go to jail, or you don't want to die. So now there's this huge struggle, right? And again, that's a little bit sidetracked, but the point is this. There are more people getting killed that are not black from law enforcement. That's just not reported because there's no agenda there, right? So this sense of reparation, let's fix let's give the black community because we enslaved them. Check it out. I fucking never had a slave. I never owned a slave. I don't feel bad about it. It's a part of history. It's part of what formed America as a whole. Like, we went through these cool things, man, and we can look back and we're like, oh, man, we settled new lands and this, and this. But let's be upset about the slavery part of it all. We didn't go and then throw chains on people and bring them over, right? They did that to themselves in a time where slave trade was a business. It wasn't like the problem here is we look at history from modern day perspective. You cannot do that. You have to look at history in the time that it took place. What was just, what was fair, what was the way of living then? Not how I feel right now in my cozy house with my purple hair and black fingernail polish, and I'm this fucking white guy.
Which you don't have, by the way. I'm just telling people Raul does not look that way.
But you can't look at history and the things that happened in history in that way, right? So you have all these here in the States. You have like these white people like bowing down to black people and apologizing, and like they're kissing their feet. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? You're an embarrassment to just being a person because you never owned a slave. That person that you're cowering to, they were never enslaved. It's generations now beyond that, right? But nobody wants to admit that because everybody who wants something for free is fucking lazy. You work for it. We've been to third world countries where they don't fucking want free shit. They want to work for their shit. They want to earn it. They want to feel that sense of accomplishment. And people who don't have that, it's a shift. Those are the people that steal. Those are the people that take. Those are the people that don't give a shit about the rest of the community. that tends to be who gets shot. That tends to be who gets arrested, right? Yes, there's times and places where you're a good guy and you're with somebody who's a shitbag and you guys are friends and you don't want to be like, hey man, you're not a good guy. I'm not going to be your friend. But that guy gets in trouble and you happen to be next to him and you get wrapped up into that. Well, guess what? The lesson there, don't hang out with that guy, right? Or shit happens. So again, this whole like black genocide thing, it's a weird thing in America, and I don't understand why it's being portrayed that way, because I'm pretty sure black people are treated very differently in other countries, and it's a lot worse than the way America treats black people, right? We've had a black president.
Yeah, I mean, there is black genocide in places like the Congo, in Africa.
Africa. But hey, let's not talk about that because it's blacks killing blacks. Well, that's whatever, right? But as soon as you create these race profiles, it's fucking stupid. It's ignorant on both sides. The people that placate to it and then the people that want that. And work your fucking ass off and have the things that you want, not given to you, but earned. Man, that's something special. That's what communities used to be, right? But all these handouts and government aid and this bullshit, that's what creates that inferiority sense of being. And then they live like that. And then they teach that to their kids, and then their kids are like that. When I worked those ghettos, they were so closed off that there was these black kids. They're about 3 or 4 years old. I'm pretty sure it was that. They were young. But they had never seen a white person in America. This means that they segregate themselves. I don't know. People think that racism is this rampant thing that's going on in America, and I don't think it is. I'm like I said, I'm first generation American, so I'm not even of a descendant line of Americans. I'm the first American in my family, and I'm like the most proud of it, right? So that's why I joined the military. That's why I did all the services for the country, and law enforcement is to give back to a country that gave my family what it needed to thrive. So I'm proud of that. Why aren't other people proud of that? Why aren't they proud to be in a community that now their history should be something like, fuck, we came from some fucked up shit, but now it's awesome. Now I have the chance to be a lawyer. Now I can fight for injustice. Now I can do this, 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 and this. But instead it's just like, no, a wave of oppression. Let me live in this wave of oppression because it's easy and it's comfortable and I get free shit. Fuck that. Grow up, learn to be a part of your community, and shit like that won't happen. And then being a cop, interviewing black people, because we would arrest a lot of black people because they were the ones committing the crimes in the areas where we were. They themselves treat each other like shit. I have video recordings of debriefs, and these guys are like, man, I got a job at a pizza place, and the other 2 black guys that worked there, they would spit in my drinks, and I would bring them out, and the people would get mad at me. All this shit just to get me fired because they thought I was there to take their tips. Like, fuck, you guys are sabotaging each other, but nobody's talking about that. And again, I'm just derailing a little bit into what I've seen working the black communities and being in the black communities. They rob each other. And it's like any community, right? When you overlay so many people in a little area, that shit tends to happen. But back to the general thing of police killing and genociding fucking just black people, it's bullshit. It's a play in the media, and whoever controls the media controls your emotions. And if your emotions are controlled and you're not logical, then you pretty much listen to whatever you see on that big blue screen.
We concentrated more, and I say we because I've been sucked into this too, more on, I'll use Jacob Blake as an example. Jacob Blake would not have got shot if he had not raped a woman. He would not have got shot. There was a warrant out for his arrest because he raped someone, which, by the way, he cut a deal for, so he's admitted to it, right?
Plea bargain, yeah.
So he did that. If he had not raped a woman, he would never have been in a position to get shot by the cops. We concentrate on that as an example of what it means to be black in America, rather than looking at the fact that a black president was there for 8 years. Now a black vice president is going to come in. I'm not saying that there is no racial problems in America, because there fucking is. And a lot of them are disgusting. And like, we should look for we should root racism out when it rears its head. But we can't do that without being honest without things, because then how do you know what is racism and what is just people like, because I'll use myself an example, dude. When the George Floyd thing happened, this is what's so nefarious about the whole thing. They use people's good intentions against them, right?
Yeah.
So when I was hearing, God, this cop killed this guy just because he was black, I was outraged by that, because who wouldn't be outraged if that was true? But then
I wasn't.
Well, yeah, but you knew. But I didn't. But then it's like you step back from it and you're like, well, hang on a minute. I thought there was proof that he killed him. Oh no, there's no proof that he killed him because he's a black guy. It was, and then you're like, well, I'd like some proof, please, if I'm going to believe that. Well, no, you're racist if you ask for the proof. You're like, hang on a minute. Now all of a sudden this is getting crazy.
Yeah.
So I can totally understand why people, when they hear these headlines, get outraged, because I got outraged, because you think that must be the truth. But then you start asking questions and there's no actual evidence that it's racist at all. In fact, there's no even evidence that it's not even a lawful killing, because lawful killings do exist.
Right.
And then you have to start asking, the bigger questions. One of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about today is the Second Amendment. And this kind of ties into this, because one thing that's never balanced out in my mind is like, okay, if you believe, so someone like Sean King, who, I actually had a couple of short conversations with Sean King. We're going to have him on the podcast at one point, but then he went a bit too wacko when he started talking about white Jesus being a white supremacist. I was like, all right, I'm out at this point. But he, because I was always saying to him, because he was very anti-Second Amendment. And I'm like, well, if you believe that a community is under threat, why would you not want them to embrace the Second Amendment and have the right to bear arms to protect themselves? So either you're full of shit about the Second Amendment stuff, or you're full of shit about the community being under threat. Because no one who truly believes their community is experiencing genocide would not want that community to be armed. That's insane.
Right.
So, like, what have you seen around, like, the kind of Second Amendment, one as a cop and, like, as over the last few years as well?
For us, I always praised it. I always wanted people to have for their protection, whatever it might be, right? And I know it's very gun focused, but I like it because it empowers people, right? And if you're a logical adult human, you're not out doing bad things with guns, right? There's like this thing where it's like this, it's a double-edged sword basically for everybody, but it's a good thing because it does create balance. So there would be times where I would stop people and you ask them, right, any weapons in the car? Yeah, I have my concealed carry license. I can carry in however many states. And I'd be like, awesome. So now I'm talking to somebody who I stopped for a potential crime, who's armed legally with a gun. And my conversation goes like this. Awesome. I won't pull my gun out. Let's have a conversation as to why I stopped you. We carry on with the conversation. Either give them a ticket or I don't. And then they carry on about their day. Right. But that's two logical adults. Right. Crazy how that works. Right. And I've stopped more people with guns and never had to do anything against them or them against me, because conversations can be had and things can be solved by talking. Not all things, obviously. But people who carry legally tend not to be criminals, right? Then you stop criminals with guns. They don't want to fight you, right? I've stopped a lot of guys with guns in cars, and they're like, "It's not my gun." I'm like, "Well, it's laying underneath your car seat." Like, who else is it? And things like that. So I don't have a problem with it. I think that it's a necessary thing to protect the communities. Again, here in America, I have this struggle where everybody's got this like come and take them. You've seen like the 3%ers, right? Like if you come after my guns, I'm gonna blah blah blah, right? Those are people typically who have never experienced the world beyond their community. We fought for our countries in other countries, right? Other soil, other peoples, and it wasn't even so. I was in Iraq from 7 to 9. We were dealing with dudes that weren't even from there. You had guys from Iran, you had dudes coming in from other places, fucking around in an area that wasn't even their hometown. So, and whether they were there for good intentions or not, fuck, who knows, right? Chances are it wasn't. They were teaching them how to make fucked up shit to kill good guys, or whoever's the good guy now. I don't even know. But the point is, when things shift, fuck, dude. I'm starting to think about cool shit in Iraq now.
I know that feeling, mate. Yeah,
fuck, that was such a good time, and it was such a peaceful, non-caring time. Either way, the guys who think that they're gonna defend their guns and this whole thing, because that's kind of where I was going with that, is they've never traveled outside of the countries or their own home countries. they're not going to kill their own citizens, man, to defend their guns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they take the Second Amendment away here in the States and police come to get your guns, and I talk to a lot of cops, and they're like, if that ever happens, I'll quit. I won't be a cop anymore because I'm not going to go take things away from Americans. And I tell Americans, I was like, are you really going to defend your gun against another American?
And then die yourself. Because they're not going to then leave and just go, oh, fair enough, we're going to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. So that might cause a civil war in America if they push the removal of firearms to the public. That might cause a civil war. Hopefully it doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't think it will, because I don't think we're that dumb that we would remove something so iconic to America. So, yeah, I like the Second Amendment, and I like that people are willing to have guns. And like I said, I've stopped people with guns and they were cool. And I've stopped bad guys with guns and they were cool. And I've stopped bad guys with guns that were not cool. But all of it is linked to what? It's linked to personalities. So education and ignorance, man, it's a big deal.
Before we get back to that, I just want to tell people what the look that came over your face as you started to think about Iraq. It was such this warm nostalgia just settled over you. I could just see the twinkle in your eyes. You were thinking about shooting people on rooftops. I see that look on.
Well, I'm sweating now. Like, whoa.
Yeah, man. Dude, I see that look on people a lot on the podcast. All this, so you just start to see him, like the head tilt comes in. You just start to, it's like, oh, he's back in Iraq. Yeah, so my thing with the the Second Amendment thing is just if guns were the problem, when there's 900 million guns or something in America, if guns were the problem, then you would see a lot more violence than you do. It's people, they're not the problem, man. And I do think though that the majority of gun owners probably lean quite conservative, and the veteran community is a gun owning community, and they know what war looks like, and they don't want shooting in their fucking backyard because they know, they've seen what happens. And I think that is, I think that's why when you hear a lot of civil war talk from the 3%ers on one end or from the left wing on the other. We're just going to come and take your guns, or you're going to do as I say. And there's just this big group of people in the middle who are gun owners who are like, just leave me alone and we'll be cool. Yeah. Because I don't want what I saw in Iraq to happen in America. And I think that I hope that common sense will prevail, because I do think there's this big group in the middle of America, and by the middle of America I mean ideologically, who are just like, I don't want any shit, bro. But like, and it's going to take a lot to get to the point where I'd actually be violent. And I think that they will stop. This idea of civil war in America, I don't see it.
I don't either.
I just don't, because people know there's too much to lose. Civil war usually comes in a country where it's like, we got nothing to lose, and there's so much to lose in America.
I think we have this. Did you guys hear about our toilet paper fucking endeavor?
I was there, bro. I was there. I was going to gas stations. There were signs of like, stop stealing our fucking toilet paper.
Yeah. I'm like, if we're worried about fucking toilet paper, which is a creature comfort, there's no fucking civil war, man. Because people who care about wiping their butts with something soft, they're not ready to pull a trigger on another fucking human being, man.
Oh, it's 100%.
They're just not. I'll cut up fucking T-shirts. I'll fucking use some rocks and some leaves. Nature provides, man. I'm not scared of no toilet paper. My people aren't scared of no toilet paper. We know how to source water. We know how to do all this shit. And these are the people that are quiet. They're just like, I don't want any of this. I want my day-to-day life. I'm ready for everything. And that's kind of how I align myself with Fieldcraft, is because we're all like-minded. We can self-sustain, but we love being a part of society. We love being a part of life and everything that surrounds us, and we educate and we entertain and we do everything we can to create that societal, like, community vibe. But we're ready, always ready. And that's like what you said about the veterans. Like, they don't want that. I don't want that at home. I don't want that where I go shopping with my girl and where I take my kids. I don't want that there. I liked it when I was in another country, which is shitty for them, right? Because it's their home turf. But I don't want it here. And I don't think people are ready for that. And that's what I say about people who've never traveled the world and seen ghettos and never seen actual third world conditions, where you go to some countries and you mention the word toilet paper, you're like, what the fuck is that? You know what I mean? They're still using rocks and sticks, dude, and tree bark to wipe their ass, and you're worried about fucking toilet paper. America's not ready for a civil war.
Yeah, dude, and this again comes down to kind of what we were saying earlier about how America and the West, more so in America. America hasn't experienced war since the Civil War. In Europe, there's people in here, and there's people around this area right now who heard German bombers flying over this place. There's bomb craters not far from here. You go to Germany, those cities were leveled. Within grandparents' generations, those cities were rubble. A 3-hour flight from here now, you can go to Croatia, Bosnia, mass graves. I think it was 0.25% of the population killed. That's happened in Europe. America has been insulated. Yes, Americans went off and fought in the wars, but the war never came to America. And I think that is, I don't think that the people who know. And then the rest of the population are just we'll just have a civil war here and sort this out. It's you have no idea what you're talking about. Sit down and shut up. Dude, you mentioned fieldcraft survival. Let's talk a little bit about that. What's the deal with this?
So it's a completely veteran owned and operated company, and it's all about preparedness and readiness and survival. And you name it, man. We teach you how to fight with your hands, with a knife, with a gun, long guns. How to work the land, how to source water, how to purify water if there's already water moving in an area. I mean, you name it, we do it. We do it all. We teach people how to do all the survival stuff that we learned in the military. We are now providing that lesson or those lessons to the public. So we have a cool setup. The CEO and owner, Mike Glover, SF guy, did a lot of cool things, worked with a lot of great agencies, and just learned a lot. When he put the company together, it was all about now finding the right people to be in these positions. And so everybody who's a part of the company now is either hand chosen or we're put into these positions to help us teach and grow the community. So we do a lot of that. We do a lot of firearms training, which is why we're huge advocates of the Second Amendment, right? So we teach a lot, we explore a lot, we go to other countries, we learn some things, we come back, we apply them here, and then we make our communities better. That's our way of giving back everything that we learned as far as being veterans, as far as being law enforcement, and just being good people in general, and being able to survive on your own without the dependency of big government. Not that we're hide in your bunker doomsdays, guys, because I love going places and enjoying the commodities, man. It's awesome. But you also should know how to do some things on your own. You know what I mean? When kids don't know where chicken nuggets come from, they think they come from the store. That's a problem. Where if they don't know where meat comes from because you've never killed an animal and then processed it and had your own food, that's a big deal. Kids need to know these things. I was raised with the family of butchers. So I had to kill a cow as a kid. I had to drink a little bit of the blood. I had to do all that, ritualistic stuff that we did when honoring the animal for giving its life to feed the community. So I think that's what's missing a lot in America. But again, it's not America's fault or Americans' fault. It's population size. We're just so big that you can't do that, right? There's no way to have 1 million little kids go kill 1 million cows and have that experience, right? So it's weird. The size of the communities have really shifted the focus of the communities. So maybe getting some time in a small community, and that's kind of what we do. We provide these little things at the company at Fieldcraft. We provide these little endeavors where 10 people sign up, and we take those 10 people into the woods and we do wood shit for fucking 5 days, and we teach you all about survival, and you get that sense of what it would be like to be in a small pack, surviving in the woods, learning to build shelters, learning to build fires, learning to gather food and resources and all these things. And then you go back to your everyday life. And it's hey, I now know how to do some of these things. You take that back, you get your family ready, let's go camping. And then you do a little camping trip and you're all right, honey, you're in charge of doing this. And little dude, you're in charge of doing this. And I'm going to go here, and then isolate each other, give everybody a 5-hour task to do their job, their role. They go do it, pretend you're by yourself, and then come together again and bring your resources and combine. So little things like that really make a good experience for people.
I was just saying to another guest the other day, actually, that what I think that America has that in the Western world is very unique for is this. You still have the real great outdoors. I mean, don't get me wrong, right? We have some beautiful areas of the UK, but you can't hunt here and stuff like you can in America. And I think that is so important to have that connection for people. I'm trying to move to the States, dude, and one of the reasons is I want to hunt. And it'll only probably be like a very rare thing that I do. But the ability to put my own food on the table for me is very important. I come from, like, my granddad had a farm. I understand that, most people, thankfully, don't see somebody die until they become an old person and things. They don't see a life being taken away. When you kill an animal, it's a weird experience, because for me personally, I find it very upsetting in some ways. But which is funny, because I never found shooting people upsetting. But I find if I run over an animal, I find it really upsetting. But it's very important then that you're not just sitting there, you eat half of your burger and then go, fuck it, and throw it away, because you like, well, I can't waste that meat. That meat has come from an animal. And, is this something that we need in all societies to kind of find a way to give, like you're saying, like how do we go about giving children this kind of access, on a bigger scale?
So we used to do it. We used to do it in schools, where they went through the whole process of showing them how animals are catered for or treated, and how farms work. All that stuff got taken away, so that now everybody can just meet the standard of some bullshit test that doesn't even mean anything, right? It's like the school gets more money if the students do better on these tests. So teaching everyday life stuff was removed. And I think that would be the biggest place, because as a kid, those first few years of education, from like ages 4 to like 10, if you ingrain some good stuff in kids in that bracket of time, man, you have a good society of people who understand what it's like to have to work hard, who understand where things come from, who respect the land, all the things that are missed out because we're too busy trying to get them ready to be a fucking lawyer. Lawyers don't know where food comes from either, unfortunately. So it's like
it comes from Uber Eats. That's what.
That's what I'm saying. So the schools, I think, I'm a big advocate of education. If we could fix some educational things, we could fix society as a whole. Just being more educated. People need to self-educate these days, because you don't even know what you're being fed as information, right? It could be an agenda. It could be legit. You don't know. So sourcing information, learning, teaching your kids things, that's a big deal. So parents that actually take responsibility for who they are and the responsibility that they now have for kids, man, that's a big deal. So it's a lot of it has to do with parents. And if the schools aren't going to do it, that's fine. The parents should do it. But even parents now are like, oh, it's the school's problem. And it should never be the school's problem. It should be the household handles it. The school reinforces whatever they're going to teach them for society. But at home, you learn self-sustainment. I think that's just something that should be done more.
Yeah, dude, when I look back on it now, the kids that did well in school, it's because of what was happening out of school, not what's happening in school. Like, everyone got the same bite of the cherry in school, but like, it's what happens in that 2-3 hours in the evening when you get home. That's what made the difference. It's very clear to me now. Where do you stand on like homeschooling and things like that? Because I know it's more popular in America.
I like it. I still think that you need that social interaction, because even as kids, there's still a food chain, right? There's still like the dominant kid, the smart kid, the kid that gets picked on. All these lessons need to be learned. So if you educate, and again, I go back to this education concept. If you teach the kids that there are roles in society, that you need to look out for this, this, and this, not get stepped on, but also not be aggressive and be a bully, but learn to navigate people and be like, hey, look, you're going to notice this in some settings. You're going to notice that in other settings. And when somebody pees their pants for the first time and they're embarrassed, instead of making fun of them, go have a conversation with them, talk to them about it, because it could be you that does it on accident, right? All these little things that happen, but all that stuff can only happen in those gatherings, those kid gatherings at schools. Mm-hmm. So it's a social dynamic that they're learning at their educational level, at their maturity level, right? Their emotional intelligence is 5 years of life, nowhere near compared to a 35, 40-year-old, right? I've gathered 40 years of information, and then I look at a kid that makes a dumb mistake, and I'm like, wow, look at this guy. You know what I mean? we just what does he know, right? But we have to remember they only have 5 years of life experience, so treat them as such, give them the lessons to better them in the next year of life, and then they'll make themselves better. They'll want to be better. So I like homeschooling ideas. It's tough. It's taxing on the household, especially if both parents are working. So it needs to be either somebody's home and that parent is capable of doing it or wants to do it, because that's a big one. If you don't want to do it, you're not going to do it well. So either you want to do it, it's a decision made by the family, or it's not. and then you go to a school and you do school stuff. So I still like the whole social hierarchy thing. So I like kids being in school. You just have to be careful with what they're learning and then educate them beyond that. Like you said, those few hours you have them at home.
Mate, thank you so much for coming on today, mate. I really enjoyed the conversation. But we got a few minutes left. I just want anything you've got on your chest that you want to get off. Anything that's on your chest, anything you want to tell people where to find you or anything like that. Any final thoughts for the listeners, mate?
Because of the whole like political like nonsense going on, I think we're looked at a little bit, not discredited, but like with shaking heads. Like, oh man, they have this isolated piece of land, and it's well protected, and it can be the best thing possible, and they're wasting, and I'm looking at it from the outside in, they're wasting their time on this petty shit. Because we do have huge potential, and we're still young. We're still one of the youngest countries in the world, right? So we're learning, we're developing, and trial and error has to be there. We have to make mistakes. We have to figure things out. It's just the way it is. We don't have the luxury of years of empires that all these other countries have that already made those mistakes, right? But because we tend to, let's not compare ourselves and this and that. Well, it's not a comparison. It's more like, let's fucking learn the lessons already, and let's look back at the lessons and not have to recreate the lesson, right? And that's kind of like the whole slavery thing. We came at the tail end of slavery, which we just happened to have had it, right? Had we been 50 years later, we probably wouldn't even have had slavery because it was ending at the time, right? It wasn't a big thing anymore. There was enough population that you can use people to fucking labor. So again, it's all time and place, right? So I think people are looking at us from the outside in with a little bit of hope and maybe, like I said, a little bit of that shaking your head like, man, you guys have so much potential. Don't ruin it, right?
Guys, hope you enjoyed that chat as much as I did. We'll be having Raul back on podcast. We barely scratched the surface, really. There's so much interesting stuff to talk with Raul, so he's definitely going to be on again soon. You know what? I'd like to take this opportunity to thank law enforcement out there who do keep communities safe and also do it with a common sense approach and not ruin the other lives of people for making a stupid mistake. Without going too much on it, guys, I know cops have a very hard job, and I know there's some of you listening who are trying to do your best in balancing law and order with not ruining young people's lives particularly. So thank you for those of you who do that. You have my thanks and you have my respect for doing a difficult job and doing it to the best of your ability. So thank you. And thank you to Combat Fuel and to Zulu Alpha Straps. Please get behind them, guys. They made this episode possible. They are linked up in the show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, please bring a friend along for the next one and make a post about it. We doubled in size this year. We doubled the size of the audience, which is you guys, aka the peasants. And we did that because we haven't run ads or anything like that. I'd like to be in a position where we could do that, but at the moment we're just going through word of mouth. So if you could tell your friends about the podcast, it will help us to grow. Think about it like this. I'm not an expert mathematician, right? But if we have X number of people listening and you all bring a friend to the next episode, then we should double each episode, shouldn't we? We have doubled in a year, but let's double more often. Let's keep it growing. Why is that important? Well, the reason that's important, guys, is because there's millions of veterans, not just in America, but in Britain too, when we go back through the ages. And I think what we have on the podcast here is useful. I think you probably think the same thing, or you wouldn't be here. Sometimes that use might just be a laugh, like on Rants and Bants, or today, like with Raul, there's some great life lessons in there too. So please do spread the podcast, because you never know who it might help if it gets to the right set of ears. All right. We will be back in a couple of days with the last episode of the year. A little Rants and Bants to see you into 2021. I'll catch you next time. Love you, bye.
You told me not to worry, and you wouldn't break my heart. You told me you were sorry, yeah, my whole world fell apart. You said it's not my fault, and yeah, I've never done you wrong. I'm grinding to a halt, now I can see you're moving on. I promised I'd get better, and I told you things would change. You keep me to the gutter, yeah, I'll never be the same. I've got to let you go, now live your life and spread your wings. And yeah, you put on quite a show, and pulled the puppet strings. And are you sure that you don't want me? Remember all the pain pain. Or maybe you should thank me, it's your loss and my gain. I'm leaving now forever, I won't hang my head in shame. But yeah, you've taken me for granted, and you should feel ashamed. You sold a dream to all of us, a dream that we'd all die for. A reason for us all to live and something we could fight for. I might just help a man up to his feet or hold a newborn, but no matter what I do, my hands remembering my rifle, yeah.
Life's hard, I know that, still wouldn't change shit. I wouldn't go back, yeah, I wouldn't go back. Feelings I hold back, memories fade, yeah, they go fast, yeah, they go fast. Good times that come and go, survive the highs and lows. Just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose. Good times that come and go, survive the highs and lows. Just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose.